You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got troubles. I got them too. All right. I was just jamming out to that song because it reminded me of all 4 stories that we just completed, 4th graders. Give yourselves a pat on the back because we just finished this module. That's so cool. Mrs. Lawson here. I am so excited you're back to kind of bring this all back together and compare those 4 stories. And let's go ahead and just get started. So the 4 stories that we are comparing today are Why the Sea is Salty, How the Stars Fell into the Sky, Pecos Bill, and John Henry. So I'm so excited because these are all really amazing stories. And to start us off, I want to do a quick vocabulary review to see who's been paying attention and locking in those vocabulary definitions. So what about desolate? Do you guys remember? This is going to be quick, so see if you can remember. Desolate means deserted of people. It's empty. What about dazed? Those pictures to help you in case you forgot. Dazed. Yeah, you're unable to think. You're confused. What about catastrophe? Look at that picture. What is a catastrophe? It's a tragic event. So it's something that's awful happens. It's just not good. Look at all those buildings. What about dignity? This is a tough one. Yeah, it was from John Henry. It was being worthy of honor and respect. So it's your pride in yourself. Good job. I just want to do a quick review because you know Miss Lawson loves her vocabulary. Now, for foundational skill today, we're doing that same skill of trying to figure out those vocabulary words that we don't know. We see it in the text and we get confused. What strategies can we use to figure it out? The first thing we can do is sound that word out. The second thing we can do is look for clues in the sentence. A lot of times there are clues that help us figure out what it means. The third thing we can do if we're completely stuck or we just want to double check what we came up with is look in the dictionary. So today you are going to have this to complete on Seesaw or on a piece of paper, and you're going to try and figure out these underlined words. It says use your context clues to determine the meaning of the underlined word in the sentence. So try and sound them out, use those context clues, and if you need to, you can even look them up in the dictionary. There are 2 different slides for you to complete, and if you're paying attention, some of them we might already have talked about. Got your back, 4th graders, don't worry. So just try your best. You got this. Our learning intention for the day is we're learning to make connections. And I like to do this because always making connections as good readers. But we're connecting between different texts because we've read 4. And we're going to do this so that we can better understand what we read. You're going to be successful today when you can define the main character, some events from the story, and theme. And then you're going to identify text elements from the story. And then last, you're going to compare the elements from different texts. I thought this was pretty cool about legends. In the language of stars lie stories of old, brilliant legends, told, retold, spilling out sagas, spilling out light, a mythical manuscript, filling the night. So we're going to make connections between different legends and tall tales because these are cool things that have been retold for generations. They've been around a while and we can learn from them. So all of these stories at least have one extraordinary character or hero. What is their unusual ability that they have? Because each one has a special ability that the others don't. So what I recommend is we're going to go to each story right now. I'm getting a fresh page. I want you all to grab something that you can take notes on right now, because we're going to go through all of these texts and then we're going to fill out a chart together. So we're going to start with the giant in Why the Sea is Salty. And we're going to look back. What extraordinary thing is he able to do? So it says, at first, the boy saw nothing, but the giant had seen the villagers' smoke signals. Sorry, let me get my handy-dandy arrow. He stretched his long legs across the sea, his toes pointing to the sky like big, fat button mushrooms. I can kind of see what they're talking about down here with the mushrooms. The boy grinned when he saw the giant's feet. It was such a strange sight. The boy waited until the giant's feet had passed over his head. Then he reached up and tapped one of the giant's feet with the bamboo stick to let him know he could put his feet down. Slowly, the giant lowered his feet until his heels touched the ground. So, I'm not like the giant. I don't have feet like him. What cool thing was he able to do? Great job. You guys figured it out. He was able to use his legs as a bridge. So I'm going to write that down so I remember it. And just write legs as bridge. Short and sweet to help us, just to help us remember that for later. Good job. Now we're just going to hop right on over to our next story, How the Stars Fell into the Sky. And we are going to try and figure out what cool thing are First Woman and Coyote able to do. It says right here, her hands glowed from the warmth of the stars she was touching, and she smiled as she toiled. May I help? Coyote asked. First Woman nodded. Being here, she said. Begin here, she said, and handed him a star. What cool thing are they able to do? Yeah, they are able to touch the stars. I can't do that. So they are able to touch those stars. Good job. Pause it if you need more time. There is no rush. Now we're on to Pecos Bill, and you guessed it, we are focusing on Pecos Bill. So it says, Bill hadn't gone far when disaster struck. His horse stepped in a hole, oh no, and he broke his ankle. Dang, said Bill as he stumbled up from the spill. He draped that lame critter around his neck and hurried on. After he'd walked about 100 more miles, Bill heard some mean rattling. Then a 50-foot rattlesnake reared up its ugly head and stuck out its long forked tongue ready to fight. Knock it off, you scaly-hided fool. I'm in a hurry, Bill said. The snake didn't give a spit for Bill's plan. He just rattled on. Before the cussed varmint could strike, Bill had no choice but to knock him cross-eyed. Hey, feller, he said, holding up the dazed snake. I like your spunk. Come, go with us. Then he wrapped the rattler around his arm and continued on his way. After Bill had hiked another 100 miles with his horse around his neck and his snake around his arm, he heard a terrible growl. A huge mountain lion was crouching on a cliff, getting ready to leap on top of him. Don't jump, you mangy bob-tailed flea bag, Bill said. Well, call any mountain lion a mangy bob-tailed flea bag and he'll jump on your back for sure. After this one leaped onto Bill, so much fur began to fly that it darkened the sky. Bill wrestled that mountain lion into a headlock. So I'm not even going to finish this page. It already sticks out to me the things that Bill can do that I can't do. So, what did you guys notice that he can do? Can you talk to rattlesnakes? Can you talk to other animals? I know Miss Lawson can't. I mean, I talk to them, but they might not understand me. So I'm going to put that Pecos Bill can talk to animals. What else is he able to do? Yeah, another thing I noticed is he is super strong. He's able to carry a horse. It said that up here, right? He had his horse around his neck and a snake around his arm. So he is super strong. And then we will start this page together in a second. I'll let you finish up writing what you're working on. All right, so just when the end seemed near, the sky, oh, gotta get my Pecos Bill whistle on because we're in Texas. Just when the end seemed near, the sky turned a deep shade of purple. From the distant mountain came a terrible roar. Cattle began to stampede, and a huge black funnel cyclone appeared, heading straight for Bill's ranch. The rest of the Hell's Gate gang shouted, "Help!" and ran. But Pecos Bill wasn't scared in the least. "Wahoo!" Or he said, "Yahoo!" he hollered, and he swung his lariat and lassoed that cyclone around its neck. All right, so we don't need to read any further because that is extraordinary, and that's something we can't do right there. What was he able to control? Yeah, he was able to control a cyclone. That's pretty impressive. So he is able to control nature or storms. All right, and this is the story we just read. So you guys might be able to think back without even reading the text, but let's just look so that we have evidence, because that is a big thing that we are working on in fourth grade. So we're looking for what makes John Henry special. Said, "No, sirree," said Jimmy, John Henry's oldest friend. "Before that drill wins, he'll make the mountain fall." Bang! The race was on. As the steam drill salesman turned on the steam, John Henry kissed the smooth handle of his hammer. At first, the steam drill drove the steel twice as fast as John Henry did. But then he grabbed another hammer and started working with a hammer in each hand. He was faster and faster, striking blow after blow as he tunneled into the mountain. "That man's a mighty man," a city man shouted, "but he'll weaken when the hardest rock is found." "Not John Henry. Just listen to that steel ring," Little Bill said. "I believe these mountains are caving in," said the city man. "No, they're not. That's his hammer you hear in the wind." So, as we learn down here, it says, John Henry kept hammering and hammering faster than any man had ever hammered before, hammering against all machines of the future. As his hammer glowed white hot, he tunneled deeper into the darkness, driving the steel so hard that the mighty ribs of his body began to crack and his insides broke into two and his great heart burst. So John Henry was able to do what? Yeah, he beat the machine. He worked faster than a machine, which is incredible. So write that down. Go ahead and pause your video if you need more time because we're going to get started on this chart. So as you see, we have the main hero or extraordinary person from each story, and we're going to start by saying what makes them special, what makes them different. We've already kind of talked about it. We figured out that the giant, well, he's the only giant, right? Everybody else is a villager and they're smaller. So that's what sets him apart. And fourth graders, you are going to be finishing this on your own for your reading response today. So it might be a good idea if you were making this on your own on a piece of paper as well and following along. What makes First Woman special? Her name is First Woman, right? She's the first woman on Earth. So I would say that makes her pretty special. What about Pecos Bill? What makes him special? What do you guys think? He is the best cowboy. Yeah, we talked about that while we were reading in those lessons in the past. And now what about John Henry, which we just finished? What makes him special? Yeah, you guys figured it out. He is the best steel driver. So good job remembering those. And don't forget about those things we just figured out because we're going to come back to those. Now, we've talked about character traits before. We're going to try and figure out how do we describe each of these characters. So let's start off by thinking back to when we read Why the Sea is Salty, because we really did talk about the giant quite a bit. What was he like? Yeah, you guys are really thinking back. Good job making those connections, fourth graders. He was kind. He was very big and he was generous. He did a lot of things that he did not have to do. Now, guys, again, I'm going to stop saying this because you guys should know this by now. Miss Lawson's going too fast. I know she likes to talk fast and talk a lot. Just pause it. It's never a bad thing if you need to pause it. Now, what about first woman? What was she like? What's a character trait for her? And we talked about this quite a bit too. Yes. Okay. So it said she was very patient, right? She toiled and toiled, and she was willing to do this every day for the rest of her life. So she's patient and she's a hard worker. And it also said she's ageless because she's the first woman and she's up there working in the sky. Now we're moving on to Pecos Bill. Pecos Bill, what made him special? He was the leader, right? He was wild of those cowboys, of that gang, and we already talked about this, he was so strong. He was carrying that horse, and he was controlling that cyclone. You have to be super strong for that. You guessed it, fourth graders. We're moving on to John Henry. What do you think about John Henry? Yeah, this is the most fresh in your brain, so you guys should be killing this one. Again, he's a lot like Pecos Bill. He is also very strong, but he's also kind. He went out of his way to help out those other people by trying to beat the machine. Great job. Okay, so now some other things that we're going to make connections with is we're identifying similarities between the text. Good readers draw connections between story elements like main character, events, and themes. So, how does the character of Pecos Bill and John Henry reflect the theme of being good at what you do? Let's look back at this page. What did Pecos Bill do that showed that he was really good? What skill was he good at? So pause this, try and read back through this on your own and see if you can figure it out. All right, good job trying your best, fourth graders. So 2 things that stick out to me about this is that 1, Pecos Bill was said to be the greatest cowboy that ever lived. So he's obviously good at being a cowboy. The second thing is when he lassoed this cyclone, he let it flood over Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona until he slid off the shriveled up funnel and fell into California. It sank about 200 feet below into the Death Valley, and he ended the drought. So because of him and how good he was at lassoing that cyclone and dragging it along, he was able to save that land and give it water. What about John Henry? How do you know he's good at what he does? I'll give you a second to read through this and try and figure it out on your own. All right, if you remember, this is a page I actually read with you guys, and the answer is down here. It says that it was so hot that a lot of steel drivers collapsed by noon. So John Henry tried to protect their jobs by picking up their hammers and doing their work too. One work he did his own work and the work of 4 other people. So it's showing he didn't only do his work, he did the work of 4 other people. That's how good he was at his job. Man. All right, some connections that we want to make too is what similarities can we find between First Woman, Coyote, and the Giant when it comes to their relationship with nature and the natural world? If you think back to Why the Sea is Salty and how the stars fell into the sky, this answer should come to you quickly, right? because they're explaining two things in nature. So these three characters had control over how the earth is today. So First Woman and Coyote, they controlled the stars and they made the stars how they are. And the giant, he made the ocean how the ocean is today, right? So what about First Woman and Pecos Bill? What special relationship do they have with animals? Yeah, you guys figured out they both are able to talk to animals, right? And then this last connection, what is special of the giant, Pecos Bill, and John Henry? I know this is a bit tough. They are all able to control nature, right? Um, and Jordan Henry, I made a typo. I hope you guys saw that and were paying really close attention. All right, so let's figure out this last row before you're on your own. We're figuring out what makes them extraordinary, and we already went through and figured this out together. So the giant, it has those long legs, and if you put here that he's able to make a bridge with those long legs, that works perfectly. Another thing that stuck out to Miss Lawson is that they can mine salt and that he steps over hills. What about First Woman? We already talked about it. Put those stars in the sky. Pecos Bill, do you guys remember? Yep, he controlled the cyclone to end the drought and talks to animals. What about John Henry? He's that really, really hard worker. He worked so hard that he died. That's a really hard worker. All right, now it's your turn. You're going to complete the table. In the last row, you're going to fill out what each character did to help the people around them. And that's why I started this video off with "You've Got a Friend in Me," because each hero in this story, they did something to help others. And I feel like that makes them a hero. So you've got this. It might seem hard, but don't let that get in your way. Persevere, push through. You've got it. So I'm going to attach these pages. So you're going to have the chart to fill out. You're going to have a page with a label up here of each text that tells you what they did to help others. You can do this, fourth graders. We've worked so hard, and I believe in you. Good luck. Have a great rest of your day, and give yourself a pat on the back. You guys have been working so hard. Bye.